I remember the early part of 2020. I remember the fear, the anxiety, and the uncertainty. I worked with an organization where I was able to continue to go into my office, and I remember going into the office and it felt like I went in and I closed the door. Not just for a couple of hours for a meeting where we would discuss sort of strategies, how do we walk through this pandemic and how do we keep the organization going, but it felt like I walked into that office and I felt like I closed that door for months. I think that was one of the biggest leadership failures that I've had in my life, is that I closed the door in my office during that time when I was facing so much fear and anxiety and uncertainty. Because I failed to recognize that the fear and anxiety and uncertainty that I was facing was also being faced by every single member of our team. And they needed not just somebody to close the door to try and figure out what we were going to do next, but they needed somebody to connect with them and say, hey, you know what? We're working on this together. And we've got a common vision of trying to figure this out together and actually move the organization forward as we walk through these uncertain times. So when we experience a crisis, like something that we walked through during the pandemic, there's always an opportunity to learn and to grow. But when we talked about quiet quitting, and you hear about this trend of quiet quitting as a leader, from a leader's perspective, what does that make you think? The data out of the US shows, you've got approximately 50% of the United States workforce, according to the polling or data or however you want to look at it, that says that they're in a position of quiet quitting, basically disengaged from work, disengaged from the vision of the organization. They're basically doing just the minimum, mailing it in. They're not excited about what it is they do, and they don't really feel like they're a part of something. 50%. And you go, wow, that's a crisis. There's a crisis around quiet quitting. And I look at it and go, you know what? Yeah, there's a crisis in that per se, but I think that's actually just the symptom. The crisis is actually a leadership crisis. Because as John Maxwell famously says, right, everything rises and falls on leadership. And so if you've got team members on a team that are disengaged and don't understand the vision, or don't feel like it can be a part of it, or don't feel that it aligns with who they are as a person, then you've actually got a leadership issue. That person might be going through some stuff for sure, but generally there's more of a culture, supervisor, manager, leader issue than there is an issue at the level of the person that's quiet quitting. And so as I thought about this further, I'm like, well, there is an opportunity here, right? Because if you've got 50% of the US workforce that says that they're in this place of quote unquote quiet quitting, and then you've got the other 50% that might be more engaged, but you're also in a labor market where it's really challenging to find good people. I continue to hear from everybody that I talk to going, you know what, it's really tough to find good people. If you can be the leader that's engaging with your people, that's developing your people, that's growing towards a common vision or goal, then all of a sudden you're going to be able to attract great people onto your team because they want to be engaged. People want to be engaged. They want to make an impact. They want to have an impact in their life and the work that they do. And that's really an opportunity for you as a leader. So what questions can we ask? What skills can we develop as leaders to sort of help us as we walk through this crisis, actually help it turn into an opportunity? What are the paths that we can take that can set us in the trajectory to put together great teams to do great things? I think the first thing you want to do is take a look at the team that you have right now, because if you can build and grow and develop the team that you have right now, that'll help you to attract more great talent in the future. So the first thing would be to take a look at your team right now and go, okay, do I believe that I've got anybody on my team that's quiet quitting right now? And then this is where I think you should look at it very closely and say, do I have people that are quiet quitting, or do I just have people that have really great boundaries? Because that's really important. You want people with great boundaries, people that have a great understanding of the expectations of their role and what it means to be successful in it. So you might have people that are able to be really engaged, but they say, hey, you know what, at 5 o'clock, I got to shut it down because I got to be able to be home. I got a thing with my family. Value is dinner on the table all together, everybody around the same table every night. But when I'm here, I'm going to kill it towards the objectives and the goals and things that you've got. That's not someone that's quiet quitting. They're not walking out at the end of the day saying, I won't do any extra effort. They're saying, hey, you know what? I've got really healthy boundaries, and that should be celebrated. So take a look at your team members and just say, hey, you know what? Are there people on my team that just have really good boundaries, or are there people where I actually feel like, no, they're actually disengaged. They're actually sort of apart from the vision. We're not on the same page. Kind of separate those two and make sure that you're not sort of working to try and fix something that isn't broken, that actually might be something you want to celebrate. So that's the first exercise I would recommend. And the second exercise I would recommend would be around John Maxwell's 5 levels of leadership. So take out a piece of paper, write down on the left-hand side and put down level 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. We'll walk through what those levels are right now. And then what I want to do is I want to take the names of each of the people that are on my team, and I want to write beside each level where I think I am on a relationship basis with that person on the 5 levels of leadership. So let's refresh on the 5 levels of leadership. The first level of leadership leadership is called position. And that's basically when you're just getting to know someone. Either you're new to the position or they're new to the position. And basically you're a leader purely based upon the fact that you're the manager, supervisor, whatever it is in title. You lead them based purely on where you are in the organizational structure. You just happen to be the leader, but there's no relationship there. Hopefully you're never at this position or this level with anyone on your team for very long. It's purely positional leadership, and it's the first level of leadership. The second level is the permission level. So in the permission level, you're now actually gaining some relational capital. You get to know each other a little bit better. You're sharing sort of the goals of the organization, understanding a little bit about where their goals are and what it is that they can do. And now you have permission to serve them, permission to lead them. And level 3 is the production level. And this is when it starts to get a little bit exciting. You've got some definitely more relational capital. You're starting to get some wins under your belt in that relationship and as a team. Things are happening. Wins are starting to accumulate. You're starting to actually attract more talent once you get up to this point because people want to be a part of a winning team. But you guys have combined goals and you're starting to make an impact when you're hitting this level 3 at that production level of leadership. And level 4 is the people development level of leadership. I believe this is where things start to get really exciting because you're now sowing into your team to develop future leaders. So maybe leaders that are going to come up into the role that you currently serve in, or maybe leaders that are building their own teams. This is where you're really pouring into and not just developing their skill set around producing whatever it is that you produce for your organization, but actually producing other leaders, duplication of leadership, because it's just the most powerful thing to develop other leaders. So this is level 4, is the people development level of leadership. And level 5 is what John Maxwell calls the pinnacle of leadership. And it's sort of this lifelong point of pursuit to get to this, but basically it's where your leadership is recognized outside of the walls of your organization. So you have sown into your values, you have sown into your people and developed people for so long that who you are as a leader is recognized outside of the organization that you are part of. He calls it the pinnacle of leadership, more of a lifetime pursuit. So now that you've got the 5 levels of leadership down on your page and you've got your team members written beside each level, knowing where they are, I would ask you to go through each one of those people, or just take a look at that list and go, you know what? How can I take this person, my relationship with this person? How can I serve this person and take the relationship to the next level? If you've got somebody that's just started with your organization, how can you move them from just seeing you as the manager, or supervisor, or leader of the organization up to that permission level so they can allow you to lead them? How can you get to that development level so you're developing leaders within your organization when you've got key people on your team, right? I recognize that's a long-term vision and a long-term goal, but when you start to do that, all of a sudden your people are excited to be a part of your team. You're excited to be working on a team with these people because you're focused on the right things and developing these people and developing relationships, and that's going to attract great people to your team. So with John Maxwell's quote, everything rises and falls on leadership. When you hear about something like quiet quitting, a symptom of a leadership crisis, this should allow you and I to stand up and take notice and say, hey, you know what? There's an opportunity here as a leader. Regardless of where I am in my leadership journey, there's an opportunity for me to level up my leadership, to be able to attract more great talent, to build better teams and stronger teams so that we can have more of an impact for whatever it is that God is calling you towards. So I'm so excited about everything that's happening in your life. I'm excited about the leadership journey that you are on and the impact that God is having in and through you. And I hope that you have an absolutely blessed rest of your day. I look forward to connecting with you again next week.